Hare Krishna.
Yes, sir.
धृति गृहीतया आत्मसंस्थं मनः कृत्वा न किञ्चित् अपि चिन्तयेत् शनैः शनैरुपरमेत् बुद्ध्या धृतिगृहीतया आत्मसंस्थं मनः कृत्वा न किञ्चित् अपि चिन्तयेत्.
So the Gita has how many chapters?
18 chapters.
18 chapters. Yes. Then there are three sections. Okay, so first verse to 6 is one section. The third section. So we are right now in the sixth chapter. The sixth chapter has how many verses in the most? 47 verses. Yes. The chapter 6. Now we are more or less in the middle right now. This is text 25 in the 47, among the 47 verses. And the sixth chapter is primarily about the mind. It is about how we can elevate and eventually liberate the mind. So how we can purify it, how we can rectify its tendencies. We elevate and then finally we liberate the mind. And in the verses before this, Krishna has described the stage of samadhi. Text 20 to 23. This he has described the state of samadhi. Stage where we are completely absorbed in spiritual reality. Krishna says, in this, you will experience supreme happiness. Yam labdha chaparam laham manyate nadhikam tata. Having gained this, we feel there is nothing more to gain. And after describing this wonderful, wonderful goal, now the idea is he starts describing what is the process to get. Suppose we have a relative who is settled in America and they come here and say, okay, America life is so comfortable, it's just nice, that is nice, that's nice. So they describe, they glorify America, and we feel, okay, I would also like to go there. So when we hear something glorious, then our aspiration, our desire gets to it. So now, when Krishna talks about that state of mind when we're completely absorbed in the divine, completely unshaken by the world, how do we get there? So that is the process that he's describing in these verses 24, 25, 26. He will be describing the process. So we are on the 25th verse. That is describing the process. And the first thing he says is Shanai Shanai Ruparami. Shanai Shanai means gradually, step by step. When we want to work on the mind, it is, yes, it is a matter of willpower, but it is not just a matter of willpower. It means, okay, I want to do something. I was not able to do it. Yes, my regular habit is I wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I say that I want to wake up at 3 o'clock from tomorrow or 4 o'clock from tomorrow. Now, sometimes it may be possible, but sometimes it may be difficult. Because the mind is also a thing. See, in the Gita's vision of reality, reality is three levels. There is the soul, there is the mind, and there is the body. And each of these is real. The soul, mind, and body. And all three are real, all three together comprise the self, what Prabhupada calls as the living entity. So the soul is spiritual. The living entity is a combination of the body, mind, and soul. So the self that is there is a combination of these three things. And now, among these three, all three are real. It is not that the body is false. The body is real. If I hit my body over my hand over here, if there's this hot or sharp, I'll feel hurt, and the pain is real. So just as the body is real, the mind is also real. So when we say the mind is real, that means that to change the mind also requires a real change. It's like if somebody is capable of lifting, say, 10 kg weights, and suddenly you put 60 kg weight on them. What will happen? Instead of they lifting the 60 kg weight, they will become a 60 kg weight that somebody else has to lift on a stretcher. Isn't it? So that now can they lift 60 kg weight? Yeah, maybe, but they'll have to practice. They have to practice gradually, slowly, and their capacity can increase with time. So the body is real and the mind is also real. Now, what this means is when we say it is real, real means that the mind has real tendencies, real conditionings, and those cannot just be wished away. So, for example, somebody is an alcoholic and they say, I want to give up alcohol. That's good if they want to give up alcohol, but they may want to give up alcohol, but will alcohol give them up easily? No, isn't it? The desires will keep coming, the urges will keep coming, and they have to keep saying no to them. So, for example, if we consider lust or anger or greed, now we may say lust is a desire that comes within us. And it's true. When we see something very alluring or someone very alluring, we might feel that desire coming. However, it's not just a desire, it's also a condition. If you consider alcoholism, I mean, lust can seem a little bit intrusive to us, too much into our own space. But if you consider alcoholism, now the person may get a desire to drink alcohol, and that desire is really there. But it's not just the desire. So it's like if we consider the mind over here, in the mind, certain things pop up. We consider the mind to be like a screen. Like we have a phone screen. There are some pop-ups on that screen. So when a desire comes within us, it's like a pop-up. Now when the pop-up comes, it's the stage of the desire. So we may feel, I want to eat this, I want to watch this, an alcoholic may feel, I want to drink. Now, if we consider, say, two people are there, this is their home and this is their office, and along with the way there is a bar. Now, both of these people go along the same path. One of them has never drunk and has no interest in drinking. The other has drunk regularly. Now, when both of them pass by, in one of them, the desire to drink will come up very strongly. In the other, the desire may not come at all. Why is that? Then both of them are seeing the same thing because it's the pop-up is a real thing, but the pop-up comes from some impressions that are there inside. So if those impressions were not there, the pop-up will not come at all. So if somebody has never taken drugs and they know that I'm not interested in drugs, then what happens? Those impressions are not there. The pop-up will not come only, isn't it? So when I say the mind is real, that means these impressions, they are real. And in some impressions, now the impressions, we can also use the word conditionings for them. Conditionings means that those are real impressions that are there inside. And depending on how strong the impressions are there, the pop-up will come that strong. So if the conditionings are small, the pop-up that will come will also be small. The conditionings are large, then the pop-up that comes up will occupy the full screen. And then that person will not be able to think about anything else. So suppose an alcoholic is there, they see a bottle of alcohol, then Sarva dharman parityajya mayam ekam sharanam vraja. Just forget everything else. Now, somebody else may not forget everything else, but still that pop-up comes, they experience struggle. Should I drink? No, I have to study. No, maybe if I drink, I'm going to study better. Oh no, last time you thought that and you were not able to study at all. No, but this time it will be different. See, with all that tug of war will go inside. So basically, you could put it this way, that if there is little condition, then what comes up is a small pop-up. If there is a little more conditioning, the pop-up that comes is bigger. If there is a lot of conditioning, then the pop-up that comes up, it almost completely occupies the mind. So the mind is real. Now these pop-ups and the conditionings, they are not necessarily bad also. They can be good also. Say if we grew up in a pious family, and we know whenever we go to a temple, we should bow down, we should fold our hand, we should be respectful. So now you will see sometimes when people are going in a car or a train, they might be talking with someone, and they see some temple somewhere, suddenly they'll stop and fold their hands, or they'll just bow down, they'll do something. Now their conversation is going on, but that impression, that samskar is so deeply there that as soon as they see a temple, they may not be going into the temple, but just bow down. So these pop-ups can be both positive and negative. But those pop-ups, when they are there, they come from the conditionings that are there inside us. So many times, when we think about changing our mind or mind transformation, mind control, what happens is we only think of the pop-ups. Stop the pop-ups. Why am I feeling this desire? Why is this desire coming? This desire should not be coming. I don't want this desire. Why is it coming? Oh, it's calm, it's so strong, I can't overcome it. So we often focus on the pop-ups. And of course, we want to focus on the pop-ups. We can stop, but along with that, what is important is that we need to go deeper to the conditionings, to the impressions from which the pop-ups are coming. Here we need to change these impressions. So now to understand how these pop-ups come, generally speaking, if we consider this is the mind, and say there are conditionings in the mind, and from which a particular pop-up is coming now. Now generally the pop-up comes broadly by a combination of two things. There is an external perception. We see something. Even an alcoholic, they see a bar, then external perception comes in. But there is also an internal recollection. Recollection means remembering. And last time I enjoyed, I drank, I felt so good. So the external perception and the internal recollection both combine to give rise to the pop-up. Now, how much is it when the pop-up comes? Sometimes the recollection may be 10% and the perception may be 90%. That means we see something so attractive that is very captivating. Sometimes it may be that the outside thing is not very attractive, but internally the recollection starts, the imagination starts, and then we get caught. That can be 90%. So the Bhagavatam says that when we succumb to Maya, when we go into illusion, it can happen in two ways. One is that we have the senses and we have the sense objects. So the Bhagavatam says in the 11th canto of Uddhava Gita that sometimes the sense objects come to the senses, and sometimes the senses go to the sense objects. So when we say the sense objects come to the senses, what that means is it's perception first. We see something and then the desire gets triggered inside us. So it's perception first. So for example, we are passing by a road and we see some eatable on the road. I think we like that eatable. Maybe I want to eat it. The perception comes first, and then everything starts. So, on the other hand, sometimes you might be sitting at our room and you are studying, and suddenly, that food item is so nice, I want to eat it. So, what happens is the recollection comes first, and then we may go there. Okay, we may search in Google. We may see where is the food available now. Where can I go and get it? Nowadays, you don't have to go and get it also. It will get us. We can use these food delivery apps and whatever. We can just get the food to ourselves. The thing is, sometimes the senses go to the sense objects, sometimes sense objects come to the senses. So that means the outside in is perception is prominent, and then that triggers the recollection. And then after that, the desire and everything starts. So when Krishna says, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha, Dhyayato is contemplating. So when we are contemplating, sometimes there can be an external object that we contemplate on, but sometimes it can just an internal memory that we contemplate on. And when we contemplate, the desire starts coming. So the contemplate that we do, dhyayato. Dhyayato doesn't always have to be external. It can be external, but it can also be internal. An internal memory. Oh, last time I felt bored. I went there and I ate that and I felt so good. Or it can be an external object that we see, the perception or recollection. Both ways it can start. So why am I discussing this right now over here? The point is that we often think it's just a matter of willpower. When the desire comes up, say no to it. I don't want the desire only to come. And yes, it is that we have to say no to the pop-ups. But that's not enough. If the underlying conditionings are there, you see, now among the two things, can we control the outer perceptions? We can to some extent, but we can't. We can't go through the world with closed eyes. In the world, there will be temptations. We can try to avoid seeing them, but we cannot completely eliminate seeing them. But what we can do is, when the pop-ups come up, we can fight them. That's one level. But along with that, if we change the conditions, if we change the impressions inside us, then what will happen is, even if the perception comes from outside, the internal pop-up will not. So this requires a gradual approach. That just as muscles cannot be built overnight. So changing our conditionings, it cannot happen overnight. It's going to require time. It's going to require effort. It's going to require gradual transformation. We'll discuss how it happens. Let's look at the next paragraph. Who would like to read the next one?
Yes, so that while trying to focus my mind, I do not succumb to its strategy of devaluing the power of small steps. Just because I lost my focus after some time does not mean that the time for which I was able to focus was worthless.
Yes. See, this is where the test comes up, because for us, when we want to change the impressions in our mind, you may think, okay, I could have spent time watching TV. I read the Bhagavad Gita. I chanted the holy name. I did some spiritual activities. I did something much more sattvic, much more uplifting. And that is good. But after we do that, again that urge to watch TV might come up. Again that urge to do something sensual might come up. And then we may start thinking, what is the use? Now, I'm doing something spiritual, but the same old desires are coming up again and again. So what is the use of doing the spiritual thing? So one of the key ways in which the mind stops us is that it devalues small steps. That every day, every mantra that we chant, every shloka that we read, every class that we attend, so each of these is creating fresh and healthy impressions in our mind. However, because the past impressions are still there, those we may not see the effect. It's like small steps when we do. It's like small morsels of food that we eat. Now, it is not that we eat one morsel of food and suddenly we're feeling weak and deflated and we suddenly feel like, I have become what? Hanuman now. It's not like that. Or I have become Bhimasen. No, but every morsel of food that we are eating, it is strengthening us. Isn't it? So, what the mind does is, see, in the case of eating the morsel of food, it does not require much effort. You just get the food and keep eating it. Now, in the case of trying to do something spiritual, at that time it requires effort. And we're trying to chant, and we feel I have to do this, I have to do that. So much distraction is coming, and we have to focus. It requires effort. So many times, what happens whenever we do anything? See, there is the reward, and we are always comparing. Is the reward worth the effort? Is there any reward at all? First of all, and the reward is there. Is it coming? So when we put an effort, we expect some reward. And ideally speaking, the situation should be and the reward should be greater than the effort. If not greater, at least should be equal. Isn't it? No, this is the best. This is also okay. But if the effort is way too much and the reward is very less, then we start thinking, should I even do this? Isn't it? So now what happens for us in spiritual life? That sometimes the effort is visible, the reward is invisible. What do I mean? The effort is visible. Say, if we have to wake up in the morning, it requires visible effort. Then we have to get out of our bed. It's like sometimes if we are tired, we feel a great love for our bed. So the effort is very much visible. But okay, what do you get out of it? Now we can say the reward is we come and do kirtan, we dance and sing. That's a visible reward. That's there, definitely. But apart from that, okay, what else is there? It's like, if we want the inner change that happens, first of all, it's inner, so it's not visible. And even when it is visible, it seems to be very small. So it doesn't seem to be happening. It's like if I'm eating food, see, the food is going inside me. The food going is visible. But it's not that every morsel I eat, my muscles are becoming bigger. So, in one sense, the effect or the reward our intelligence. It's only when we have our intelligence can help us to see the invisible. People say seeing is believing. And there is some truth to that. But however, what differentiates humans from animals, one of the key things that differentiates humans from animals is our capacity to see what is not visible, or rather, to see beyond the visible to something holding the visible together. When Newton saw that apple fall, or some people say, felt that apple fall on his head, and that was visible. Now, millions of people have before him seen apple fall. Now, instead of Newton, if a monkey had seen the apple fall, what would the monkey have done? The split of the apple, Newton didn't bother. Newton could also have done the same. But what Newton did was, he looked beyond the visible, okay? What made the apple fall? And that's how we came up with the idea of gravity. So all scientific advancement, in fact, when we say there is in science there is theory, yes, we observe something we theory, we experiments. Now theories themselves are invisible. The experiments are visible, theories are invisible. But those invisible theories, which later become laws, they explain so much of the visible world. So this characteristic of human intelligence is to not get caught simply by the visible, but to look beyond the visible to the invisible. To look beyond the visible phenomena to see the invisible principles that are there. So visible, we may not see changes happen. We will see with time, but we may not be seeing on a daily basis. But if we have our intelligence active, then we will understand that at an invisible level, something significant, something substantial is happening. So don't, let's not devalue small steps. It's kind of good at it. It's
Please, Allah, help me appreciate the significance of windmill. Indeed, every moment that I invest in contemplating higher realities, and ultimately in remembering it. Every such moment is creating healthy impression in my mind and thereby reforming it. Indeed, Allah, a small step at a time is the only way to actually change the conditions of the mind.
yes. So we talk about the conditionings of the mind. So the mind can be seen to be like a machine or a you could call it a memory device. It remembers things. So if we consider our computer browser or phone browser. Now, suppose we have visited some website. I am based in Mumbai. There is a small thing in Mumbai. Have you heard of this? So now, actually, whichever part of the world I go to, everybody knows Bollywood. I was in New Zealand, and not just Indians, Americans also. Kiwi people also know about Bollywood. It's very interesting. But then, suppose somebody visited a website called Bollywood, and they visited 50 times, where they visited 100 times. Now they come and hear some spiritual talks, Krishna Bhagavan. So they want to know more about Bollywood. So they open their browser and type Vishnu. And what happens? Autocomplete. Now, they may not want to visit Bollywood.com, but it comes as auto. When it comes as autocomplete, what do they need to do? They need to still type Bhagavad. So, Bhagavad, they have to type 12 letters. As compared to pressing one enter, typing 12 letters can seem like climbing the Mount Everest. But we do that. Now, if we do it once, next time when we type D, what will come as autocomplete? Still Bollywood will come as autocomplete. But if you look down, somewhere Bhagavad Gita will also come as autocomplete. Suppose somebody has visited Bollywood.com 10 times. Now, if they visit Bhagavad.com 3-4 times, then what will happen? After some time, that Bhagavad.com will come as the first autocomplete. After some time, they visit 10, 15 times, then Bollywood may stop coming on you because they're not visiting. But on the other hand, if somebody has visited Bollywood.com 1000 times, and then even if they visit Bhagavad Gita 10 times, Bhagavad.com 10 times, still Bollywood.com will come as autocomplete. As the first autocomplete, not just autocomplete, but the first autocomplete. Now that, although there is no change happening, the autocomplete in our case, what is the pop-up that comes back? So, say maybe you're in a mood. One pop-up will come, let's watch TV. Other pop-up will come, let's hear some tunes. Maybe let's hear some nice class. There's two pop-ups are coming. Like one autocomplete is coming, other autocomplete is coming. Now, each time somebody visits bhagavatar.com, the immediately after that visit, which autocomplete comes first, that will not change. But each time they're visiting bhagavatar.com, the browser history is stored in them. And gradually, if they keep visiting it, then bhagavatar.com will come as eventually the first one. How long it will take, that depends. That depends on how much that person has visited the other websites. So if somebody has visited 10 times, just 5 times may change because these are 5 recent times. If somebody has visited 100 times, they have to visit 50 times. Somebody has visited 1,000 times, they have to visit 500 times. But the point is, each visit is causing that change. So in general, when you talk about inner change is often evolutionary before it becomes revolutionary. Evolutionary means it's gradual before it becomes dramatic. Inner change is evolutionary. Evolutionary means it happens slowly, almost invisibly. It's an evolution. But then at a particular point, it becomes revolution. Evolutionary and it will become revolutionary. So each time somebody is visiting bhagavad.com, it's an evolutionary change. The browser is recording that. But at one particular time, what will happen? Revolutionary means that Bollywood.com will not come at all. The Bhagavad.com will come at the top of the market. That's when we see the change. That's when we see the revolution happen. But it is always evolutionary. We cannot jump to the revolutionary phase. You have to go through the evolutionary phase to get to the revolutionary phase. So, suppose we all go through various situations in our life. Suppose somebody criticizes us, or we don't get a good result in our exam, or something goes wrong, and we feel discouraged. Maybe in the past, somebody when they get discouraged, their the coping mechanism was what? Okay, eat a lot of, take some comfort, or take some alcohol, or just surf on the net, just watch some TV, or just those were their ways of dealing with those downs. Now we may know, okay, let me pray to Krishna, let me hear some Supreme things like that. So we know that, and we try to do that. But even when we try to do that, still the past habit will come. So if the past habit comes, won't make a mistake. It is the pop-up. See, we need to fight against the pop-up when it comes. But just because we can stop the pop-up does not mean that we have won the war. And just because the pop-up has come does not mean we have lost the war. Both ways. So it's important that we don't keep the war only at the level of pop-ups. Now certainly pop-ups are important and we have to deal with the pop-ups. But the war is bigger than simply the pop-ups. It's the underlying conditions that need to be changed. Let's go to the last paragraph. Who would like to read? Not read it now. Yes.
Bless me, O Lord, with the confidence that this revolutionary process will eventually lead to a revolutionary result, taking me and my mind beyond this world of mortality and misery to your abode of immortality and ecstasy.
Ultimately, it's not just our habits that will change, but our habitat itself will change. We are living in this world, ultimately we'll attain excellence. So that's very far away, but that will happen. So, so this evolutionary process, what it will do revolutionary is changes our habits, but eventually it will change our habitat. Habitat is our place of residence, where we mentally live and ultimately where we live. So both will change during the course. Let's look at this once again. Now, when we are dealing with pop-ups, so when we are talking about inner change, there are two extremes. One is that the pop-up comes. And we equate that with defeat. Oh, the desire has come. What can I do? How long will I fight this desire? Let me just give. So like sometimes it happens that we set the alarm at 4 o'clock and then we're not even aware. We hang on the stool button, we go to sleep. And after that we wake up at 5:30. You wake up at 5:30 and you think, okay, already overslept. Let me see oversleep also. And so we get 5:30, we wake up at 9 o'clock. Now, no. It is that just because the pop-up has come does not mean we are defeated. On the other hand, there is pop-up doesn't come. That doesn't mean that is victory. Sometimes it may happen. Say that it's Ekadashi and we decided to fast. And we see some tempting food, but we get no desire for it. Now, that's good we didn't get the desire. But does that mean we have become pure devotees? Not necessary. It's possible, but not necessary. So what we need to do is the inner change. There's a two-pronged strategy. First is we combat the pop-ups. We have to, if some unwanted pop-up is coming, we have to fight against it. But more importantly is we change impressions. So combating the pop-ups is a matter of sanyam. It's self-control. It is because the sanyam here. We want to, that means some desire comes up, we say no to that desire. But changing the impressions, that is Shuddhikaran. Shuddhikaran is purification. So just combating the pop-ups doesn't purify us. It stops us from doing things to make us further impure. So yes, we need some amount of discipline, we need some amount of self-control. So for example, somebody is an alcoholic. If they get the urge to drink alcohol, they need to say no to that. That level of sanyam is important. That level of self-control is important. But that alone is not going to free them from the other. They have to add something to their life. Okay. What is important for me? Or what is it that I can do that will bring back meaning and value to my life? And when they start doing that, okay, I have a family, I will take care of it. God has given me all these talents. I want to use these talents to do some good to people in the world, to do some good for people around. Ultimately, I want to live purely. So when there's something positive in our life that inspires us, that draws us, that is when we will be able to replace those benefits. So it's like when we combating the purpose, what are we doing? The desire is coming, we are saying no to this. And yes, we have to say no to the desire. But that is not the only solution. The solution is we have to change the conditions. Changing the condition is we are creating new impressions. So if, for example, we all have our temptations, we all have our weaknesses, we are combating against them. And we need to combat. But if we do our sadhana nicely, if we do our, if we chant the holy names, if we hear the philosophy, if we do the virtue, then these are creating healthier impressions. And when those impressions are created, we find that the amount of energy and emotion we spend in fighting with the pop-ups, that is decreased. The pop-ups will not come that much, and even if they come, we'll be able to fight against them better. We'll be able to say no to them more easily. So for all of us, as students, we have lots of things to do. And we have our studies nowadays. It's not just studies, we have to also do some co-curricular activities, some extracurricular activities. Like there's so many things that we have to do for us. So sometimes what happens? Bhakti can feel another room for us. So many things to do, and this will become one more to do. Where is the time to do it? And that's a valid way of looking at it, but it's another complete. Bhakti is not just another to do, it is another way to do. It is another way to do. What that means? Another way to do is that when we practice bhakti, we are actually changing the conditions level. And you find that if you practice bhakti nicely, say you have 1 hour for study. In the past, in the 1 hour, how much you were able to study? You were trying to study, but all the pop-ups were coming in the mind. Hey, maybe I should watch TV with this person said like this to me, and what's going to happen to me in the future? And I mean, all those pop-ups, maybe we were able to look for, we study for 1 hour and we are able to barely comprehend 5 or 10 pages. And you practice bhakti in that same 1 hour, you'll be able to get much more than. You'll be able to study 20 pages, no, so maybe 30 pages. Sometimes what happens, some people are very distracted and they are reading a book. If somebody else comes, says, I won't talk with you. No, I'm busy reading. And then they show looking at them upside down. They're not reading the book also. But they're so caught in their mind, they don't even know the book is upside. So there's a lot of invisible time that is consumed by the pop-ups of the mind. The conditions that are there inside us, they consume a lot of our time invisibly. They consume the time invisibly, primarily through anxiety and craving. Oh, come on, eat this, watch this, your friends are enjoying, what are you doing over here? So all those cravings are there and the fears are there. What will happen in the future? If I don't pass this exam, I get a job. If I don't get a job, what will happen? I get a job, but I can't put enough this. So there's so many because of the unhealthy conditionings. So another way to do is what? It decreases the unwanted pop-ups. And when those unwanted pop-ups are decreased, then these can be related with our cravings, random cravings, and they can be related with our worries. And then when these cravings are decreased, then what happens? Is that in the same time, we will be able to do much more. And that's bhakti won't be just another tool. It's actually another way to do, another way to live our life. So when you're studying, we'll be able to focus on your study. When you're doing your spiritual life, we'll be able to focus more on our spiritual life. And that's we can grow in all areas of life. Arjuna was a great hero. He was not just a great hero, he was also a great function. So Arjuna was successful in his particular role in society. He was also successful in and then all round success is what the Bhagavad Gita recognizes. It invites us, calls us players. Pave the path for us and leave that all round success. So in summarize, what is just made, we were talking today about how can we develop consciously. So my topic was broadly about I didn't focus so much on the external consistency, wake up every day, this, instead of talking about between words to understand. I didn't use that one, but I have to use that one called chip. Chip is conscious, bigger consciousness. So the concept that we discussed, what are the concept? That our behavior is shaped. We talk about our behavior. It is shaped not just by our choices. Yes, I mean the choices. We are also shaped by our conditions that shape our choices. So when you say it's the choices, you think, I just change my choice. But the choices come from the conditions of the mind. We talk about how the mind is real. The choices are at the physical level, conditions are at the mental level. So if somebody has a muscle doesn't have the muscle, it's not in the situation. We talk about all the soul. The soul is there. The soul is there. The mind is there, and the body is. So now the choices happen. When we act, the choices happen here. The choices are important, but inside us there are conditions at the mind. And these conditionings, they also shape our choices. So we are not, our point should not be just about what choices I make. It's important. We want to change our conditions. So I discussed about how the mind works. In the mind, pop-ups come. And these pop-ups come from two sources. What are the two sources? Observer and perceptions. What we see outside and what we remember in present recollection. So from both of these pop-ups come. This was the concept of how the mind works. So then we talk about the insight. So what are the insight? How we make sense of our own life and the events in our life using this that see the mind can be changed. When we say we want to change the mind, the change happens by it's an evolutionary process. It's evolutionary. Like you want to reprogram the mind. Every single choice that you make. So many times what happens, the effort is visible, but the result reward is invisible. However, the effort is visible. Every day we do our sadhana. Every day we wake up in the morning. What am I getting out of it? Everyone? But actually, it is the characteristic of our intelligence. Intelligence enables us to see the invisible and appreciate the value of the invisible. So inner changes, evolutionary. Every day we are doing something. We are actually every day we are practicing bhakti that is changing the impressions in our mind. Eventually, a revolutionary change will happen. So let's take the example of Bollywood and Bhagavad Gita. Conditioning in our mind. Each night we are making the choice of Bhagavad Gita, listening Bhagavad Gita. We are changing the browser history. And the autocomplete will change. So the takeaway finally for us was that we take away two main parts that we don't equate. We not about change. We not make change that we don't equate. The pop-up comes. We don't equate it with defeat. Oh, I have got it. What the desire is now. What can I do? When the pop-up doesn't come, we don't equate it with this. So it's like there is. We want to work at two levels. When the pop-up comes, we want to combine the pop-ups. But at the same time, what we want to do is we want to change the conditions. Combating the pop-ups is self-control, is Sanyam. And the changing the conditioning, that is should be the rescue. So when we talk about bhakti, we practice in bhakti, we feel like this is another to do. And that is true, but it is not just another to do. It is what? Another way to do. Another way to do means what? As unwanted pop-ups will change inside. At the same time, we will do more. We will become more productive, more effective, and as the time we spend on bhakti will not take us away from our journey, but actually to help us to do our work better. That's why consistency in bhakti will actually increase our productivity in all areas. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Roji, for giving this class. So really, it helped me to see the inner self in the thoughts of me. So it helped me a lot. So now my question is that yes, you said that reward is invisible, but it will come eventually. So there is a last thing in the Siddhastra that is Ashli Shiva Padar Tam Dinastimama. So there it describes that even though you embrace me or you leave me, but you are my Lord forever. So that push from inner self, that means there I am not expecting anything from the Lord. There I am being completely satisfied with the service to the Lord. So ease that level comes by practice or by the mercy of the devotees, how it will come that satisfaction where we will not at all expect from the Lord, and we will do anything for them.
Yes. So the Shastra says that whatever you do, my Lord, you are always my Pramanath. So then how do we come to that level when we are not expecting, but we are ready to do everything for the Lord? See, I think there's a big difference between expecting and so Krishna is above us. There's expecting, and then there is accepting. So in any relationship, it's natural that there will be expectations. That's just natural. Now, say if you come after the session to ask a question. Now, if you are asking a question, you will naturally expect that I pay attention to you. So when Krishna left Vrindavan and went to Mathura and Dwarka, did the gopis not expect that Krishna come back? They were of course expecting it. So to have no expectations is just not possible. Relationship means expectations. But the point is, our surrender is not having no expectations. It is not being attached to our expectations. And that's why we can be expecting, but we also need to be accepting. Yes, Krishna, if I do this, I expect something. Suppose we do some service, go for distributing books, or we invite someone to come for a program. We expect something over there. But we may do our best and nobody may come. That doesn't mean that we give up our service. It is that Krishna, I will do my part, but I will accept whatever. If the results come or not, I will accept that. But when Prabhupada went to America, he was expecting. He said, I can see temples. I can see temples that are filled with devotees on the tiny secretaries. But Prabhupada, he also didn't know how much time it would take. Whether it be 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. Prabhupada is ready to accept. Yeah, this nachao, nachao, nachao. As you want to make me dance. So the point is that our expectations, or rather the fulfillment of our expectations, does not determine the relationship with Krishna. So as devotees, can we have desires? Of course. If we consider I'm here and say Krishna is here. Now, we all can have desires. We may have a desire to serve Krishna in a particular way. It can be direct service, Krishna, I want to do this program for you. It may be indirect service also, Krishna, I want to achieve something in my life, and then if I have that position, I can do some bigger service for him. So we all have kind desires. Desires are okay. In fact, to the extent we have spiritual desires, to that extent only we'll be able to give up material desires. If we don't have spiritual desires, how are you going to what you're not able to replace our material desires? So what differentiated the Prabhupada from many of the other God brothers were also great souls? What differentiated him from his God brothers was his strong desire, his strong desire to share the message of consciousness. It's not took him abroad all the way. So desires are fine, but the desires should not become demands. Krishna, you have to do this. And demand should certainly not become ultimatums. What is what ultimatum? Ultimatum means Krishna, if you don't do this, I'll stop chanting your holy names. We don't give an ultimatum to Krishna. So having desires and having expectations is not a problem. But being attached to the we are expecting so strongly that we can no longer be accepted. That is where the problem comes in. Good question. Any other questions about? Yes.
We know about changing conditions. means changing the impressions. So when we are trying to change the impressions from sense gratification to spiritual activities, sometimes it seems like sense gratification is not level. Right? We can't able to leave that in values. And here we come to special activities like chanting, that is more difficult. So how can we tell to our mind that this going actually going to run?
Yeah. Let's say this is the higher taste. So the question is that when we are trying to practice bhakti and give up sensual activities, then we will, the sensual activities feel more pleasure and physical activities feel that pleasure and they feel it difficult also. So what do we do at that time? Yes, it's like say we are here in the lower taste and we want to go to the higher taste. But what happens? Going to the higher taste, it seems it's too higher. So we try to go up and we end up going further down. We feel it is so high up, how do I get there? And that is true. And that is why while our sadhana is important, bhakti is not just about our sadhana. So what happens is within the practice of bhakti, we also get what we can call as an intermediate taste. So this you could call it as a material spiritual taste. What do I mean? A higher material taste which directs us towards spirituality. Say we all have certain things which we like to do. Say some of us may like music, some of us may like language, some of us may like talking with others, some of us may like managing, some of us may like cooking. So when we talk about material life, not everything in material life is simply about sense recognition. In the material dimension of life, we have skills, we have interests, we have talents, and those can also be used in Krishna's sense. So, if we consider this particular area, you could say the higher it is what we pursue through our sadhana, and that's very important. But then this intermediate higher taste, that's what we get through our seva fraction. So our service enables us to see some visible results. It's like if I do some cooking, it is not that after I go back to God, I'll see the result of the cooking. That's it. I can see the result now. And maybe many of us we didn't even know cooking before, but we come to you center, we learn cooking. And if you enjoyed something valuable, and then if we use the Krishna service, something valuable, and you feel some satisfaction over that. We may learn public speaking, and we may also learn to share Krishna's message. So now what is happening is we are getting a taste. It may not be completely spiritual, but it's not completely materialized. So we also need to find this intermediate level. And the whole point of Varnashram, it is not just so much about dividing society into four castes. The point was that what is a natural material inclination of something? The material inclination is not just towards sense gratification. Natural interests are there. So whatever are there, we use those for the service of Krishna. So we need to be able to, you can say, sit over here, ask people. We cannot get there immediately. But when we sit over here, what means? How do we find this? Look for three things. Look for what skills we have. Look for what interests we have. We may not have skills right now, but we may have some interests. Okay, in Bhakti, there's so much to learn. You say, okay, I want to learn some musical instruments. I want to learn how to play drums. There are so many things, but there are many things my interest to the actually. And then there are some talents we have. Talents are a bit more raw. Skills are more developed. Like somebody may have a talent, and when they practice and develop it, it becomes a skill. So look for our skills, interests, and talents. And that's how we will be able to situate ourselves in bhakti study. So while we are here, we do whatever services we are told to, and it's important. But while doing those services, observe us. Which service interests us naturally. which service we are able to do well, which is beautiful. I can do the same. Some services may be such that we try to improve also, we feel it's very difficult. I think we just not have the talent also to do that. That's okay. Bhakti has many services. So when we start doing some service, we won't say it's very completely higher taste. Say for example, right now I'm speaking. Now, is it that I'm speaking only for Krishna's pleasure? Well, certainly Krishna's pleasure is there. But I like to speak. I like to speak. And when I'm speaking, is it possible that I want to show how clever I am? It is there. But over a period of time, that will go away. Because speaking about Krishna gives us actually a higher taste. And what happens if somebody is singing? Somebody does kirtans. Now, are they doing kirtan only for Krishna's pleasure? Do they want others to see how nicely they are singing? Maybe they want it. That's not a bad thing. They're not singing good songs. They're singing Krishna songs only. So they are within the ambit of bhakti. And through that ambit of bhakti, through that perimeter of bhakti, gradually will become more and more dignified. The idea is, conclude this one last image, that there are things we like to do. There are things of bhakti activities, and there are our likes. So now, some of our likes may take us outside bhakti. Somebody says, I like to take alcohol. So now, that is something which we cannot. But we can find out which are our likes that overlap with bhakti. And this is because it's a pure hierarchy, so the full hierarchy. So only bhakti, even if we don't like it, if we call that as a higher taste. Now only what we like without any bhakti, that is the lower taste. So now this is where we can try to sit. This is the combined material higher taste. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Okay. I don't know whether you have time. Okay, one or two more questions. Yeah, please.
Hare Krishna. So while doing sadhana, so is that concentration and determination will determine our reward time? Like we do chanting, but we will sleep sometimes. But will that chanting with sleeping will may not give result very fast. But so my question is that how that the focus and concentration helps us to get the reward very soon. How much it is important, the concentration.
Good question. So, how important is the focus in our sadhana for us to get the results? See, basically, it is our consciousness which has to be available for the fresh impressions to be formed. If we are sleeping, then the consciousness itself is not there. Then what happens? The fresh impressions are not formed. It's like the mother is giving medicine to the child, but the child doesn't want to make the medicine. Child just closes the book. Or child keeps shaking the head. If the child keeps shaking the head, the mother is giving the medicine is not just a ritual. Oh, I put 2 spoons. If the 2 spoons go inside the medicine, that's the important thing. It's not just giving the 2 spoons. So if our consciousness is not there, then also some effect will be there. Because it's not that it's zero. The child is shaking his head. Oh, no, I don't want to drink, I don't want to drink. But then, in spite of the mother tries to hold that and push it. And what happens? The child is drinking and say, no, 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 I don't want to drink. And somehow a little bit taste goes and then I feel better. No, no, no. I want to drink. It become like that. So broadly speaking, the impressions that are formed inside us, the impressions we want to make ourselves mentally fit. So we want to become fitter, like I talked about muscles improving. So to become fit, there are 3 factors that matter. The frequency, how often we do something, the intensity, how much are we involved in doing that thing, and how long do you think? The frequency, intensity, and time duration. These three determine how much the sanskaras are changed inside. So if I was in at that point, I was visiting Sydney in America, so I would be connected with many of my student college friends. So one college friend said, "No, I regularly go to the small temple. There's a small temple over there." So almost everybody knows everyone over there. A very large group. So I asked the community leader who was hosting me, "Have you seen it?" No, I never seen it. So I asked him, "Okay, you come regularly? How regularly do you come here?" I come to Janmashtami without pictures. No, it's good. It's coming at least every Janmashtami. And it's that occasional. It's not really going to create any deep impressions now. So frequency. So how often do we how much are we involved in it? Like if you're absent minded, then the impressions won't be formed. How can we increase the frequency? Can we increase the intensity? Can we increase the time duration? Yes. I think that when we want to change the conditions of when we are dealing with this, now we want to develop a new habit. When we are developing it, initially it becomes that we can be giving one of the but now we stop it. We do neglect the purpose. In the beginning now, again too many purposes are coming. We like good down and bad out. We consider that again. If we stop creating the bad out, then so the bad out will still really work. It's too many purpose. So in that stage, in that case, how do you persist also? How do you deal with this situation? And thank you. The seriousness of the questions. Very good question, always. So if we say no to something, when that craving starts becoming more and more, the pop-up starts becoming more and more. So so then what do we do at that time? Yeah, I think there's any one way to deal with it. It depends. So for example, let's consider there's alcohol and there are drugs. Now both of them are unhealthy. But sometimes if somebody wants to give it up, there are different ways of it. So, for example, if you have alcohol, they suggest go cold turkey. And the cold turkey is an English phrase. What it means is the turkey is cold because it is dead. That means give it up fully. One time you decide to just give it up. And that is how giving up alcohol is. They say one sip is one sip too much. Then cause a relapse. But with respect to drugs, going cold turkey doesn't work. Because many times these drugs, they physiologically alter our body. And when somebody stops taking drugs, they get severe withdrawal pains. And then, now I'm not saying about all drugs, but some drugs, they may have to have like a regulated decrease. That means if you somebody has been taking a drug regularly, they stop it suddenly, their body will overreact. The body will not be able to cope with it at all. You may have heard of this term called withdrawal pains. Withdrawal pains can sometimes just be physical, psychological, just feel a lot of craving. But sometimes they can also be physiological. Like the body just can't cope with it. So there are many de-addiction centers where if a person is going for taking drug treatment, then in the de-addiction center itself, they are given drugs. Now, why are they given drugs? Then they have to give up the drugs because there has to be a regulated withdrawal. So with this regulated withdrawal, here it is. Otherwise, you want to avoid the withdrawal pains. So, so with respect to our conditioning also, some conditionings can be given up one time conditioning. So for example, if you are eating meat, we just decide one day I'm not going to eat meat and we can stop it completely. It's not that difficult. But some conditions, it may not work like that. So now, of course, if those conditions are sinful, then it's a different thing. They're breaking the four elements, that's a different thing. But there are some conditions which we may have to go in a regulated way. That means, okay, decrease it. We can't just suddenly give up completely. So now, which one will fall in which category, we may not know each. So it's best to start with an older gear approach. Just stop it completely. And when we stop it, at that time, as you rightly said, the urges will become much stronger. So we have to find at that time some other way to, to tolerate the urges. Maybe at that time we chant very fervently, or we do something which is a very absorbing activity. So then what happens is, although the urges are coming, you know, we don't pay attention. Sometimes the pop-ups come on their own, but how big the pop-ups become or how long they stay big, that depends on how much attention we are paying. If we don't pay attention, so it started is completely say no to it and we neglect it. And then it dies out on its own. But if it does not, then we may have to decide some regulated way of doing it. So now what would a regulated way of doing something be? It would generally it will not be about tamasic activities. Tamasic activities we have to is completely safe. But say somebody like to go trekking on nature and they love that. Now they become devotee and then they can't go trekking. But it's just love it. Now they may say, I just give it up. But they will feel that I'm missing something very important in their life. It's all Maya. Well, maybe it is, but they miss it a lot. Then they may decide, okay, maybe I can go on a spiritual trek. And now everybody doesn't have to go on a spiritual trek. But somebody may decide that I met one devotee recently, he had gone to Haubilam and he climbed up all the way to the Haubilam and he said was the best experience of my entire spiritual life. Now was it the higher taste or like the middle high material higher taste? It doesn't matter. He felt satisfied with it. So because at trekking I just mundane, it's just wasting time that way. Hey, you're just doing some mundane fun. Okay. And it's not harmful. It can be spiritual also. So in that way, some things we may not be able to completely say no to. But we have to find out how we can do that in such a way that it does not take us away from Krishna. Does that answer your question? Okay.
You were asking, thank you for wonderful class. Roji, if I am not very comfortable with some aspects of devotion service, but it is essential for my spiritual life and service, how can I myself make comfortable to follow it? Especially when it comes to like beginning of my Krishna consciousness. For example, I don't feel like wearing dhoti kurta to handle it and I'm not comfortable with it. Even though I know it is a good practice to wear it, how to say yes to it.
Yeah. So if you're not comfortable doing some things, but it's important, then what do we do? The Gita talks about a principle that many of the good things in life, they are like poison in the beginning and nectar at the end. Yes, agree, Nishameva, Parinami, Amritopama. They are like poison in the beginning and nectar in the end. And this principle is very much true for each one of us based on our experience. Sometimes the initial poison might seem to be very long. And in some areas, the poison might be very less. So when we find a particular activity difficult, that basically means that the initial poison is a lot. And to go through the poison to get to the nectar. And say if somebody was habituated to wake up by 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, then waking up at 4 o'clock is not that difficult. But somebody was habituated to sleeping at 4 o'clock. Then waking at 4 o'clock means the poison initially will be huge. So in some areas for each of us, the poison may be much more. Now bhakti is not so much like a digital logic. It is more analog. Digital means a one or zero, but analog means it's a spectrum, it's a range, it's a sliding scale. So bhakti is, you can say, is it digital? Like you can say, I'm in Krishna or in Maya. Yeah, you can put it that way. But in terms of the daily choice, not the moment to moment choices we make, but the overall practice that we do, it's a range. So we can be more spiritual or we can be more materialistic. And within that, there can be a scale. So if in some areas it is easier for to do something, some areas it is more difficult for us to do. So what we could do is, with respect to say now try to philosophically understand why it's important to be a written. But whatever we find uncomfortable doing, we at least philosophically understand why it is necessary to do, so that we can push ourselves to do it when it's required. But we can have a range. A range means that there is an aspiration. When you say it's analog, there's an aspirational level and there is a non-negotiable level. So in every area of life, we can't always be at the aspirational level. Aspirational level means what? Let's say every day I would like to wake up at this time only. I have complete everything by this time. All my spiritual activity by this time. Then I do this, then I do this, I do this. So, for example, if you're fasting, the aspirational level may be that say I want to fast Nirjal. I want to go to Giri waters. When I travel all over the world, when I was in was staying more in Radha Govind Brahmacharya Ashram, we used to have two clubs. We call it the Nirjal Club and the Nirlanja Club. That's a joke. It's not that if somebody tell you what to be a Nirlanja, they're shameless. Not like that. But the idea is that's an example of a digital approach. Say, for example, fasting could be I'll not take water also. Maybe that's the aspiration. But the non-negotiable level will be I won't take greens. So within that range, we can situate ourselves where there are two things. We want it to be comfortable, but at the same time, we want it to be comfortable in a way that is uplifting for us, not comfortable in a way that is degrading for us. So we don't want it to be uncomfortable. But at the same time, like in yoga, when you do yogasanas, we all are expected to stretch our body. Now, if we don't stretch the body, then we know yogasana, isn't it? But then, at the same time, in stretching your body, we should not stretch our body so much that we land up on a stretcher after that. So the idea is stretch, but not too much. So we, each one of us, has to find out, say, within this range, of what is aspirational and what is non-negotiable. We may decide what where I want to situate myself. So, for example, with respect to say dhoti kurta, we may decide, okay, I'm not very comfortable with it, but for the morning program, I'll wear it. The rest of the day, even if I come back in the evening, I may not wear it or whatever. We can talk with our particular guides and decide what is a non-negotiable and what is aspirational. So, if we make the aspirational itself non-negotiable, then we will feel suffocated, isn't it? Then we feel as if there's no option only for me. But always there is a range. So if you understand that range, in some areas we may want to go toward the aspirational level. Like say, if we like to read books, then if we like music, then we will want to not only do kirtan when the kirtan is going on, at other times also whenever we have some time, we'll learn some kirtan, we'll learn some musical instruments, we'll sing. So we'll go more toward the aspirational level. In some areas, we might be at the non-negotiable level. So find that range and find our place where we can be comfortable in that range. Okay. So thank you very much. The Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.
Approach our mentors, right? So, Prabhu, I have this problem. Then generally the mental to stop is you should not. That is me more feel suffocating because I'm not able to work, but the instruction comes is stop it. So, but when about problem now given is it has to be gradual thing. How the scientifically analyzing the problem and giving. So I think the justification for spiritual scientist. So we have seen and about how so right like very grateful and we have seen that how practically we can control the mind and everything. Let us, we are very grateful to you. So in understand this by loudly chanting Hare Krishna.